The purpose of this show is solely to provide information for you to make your own decisions on the subjects that are presented.
Welcome to the Ben Armstrong Show, folks. So glad that you have joined me. $40 billion to the Ukraine is money laundering for globalists and evil people. Folks, that may sound like an exaggeration, and it's not. The Ukraine has been money laundering for a long time. In fact, it's like the money laundering capital of the world, or it was for a long time. And the war is not stopping that. It's actually accelerating that to new heights because America is pumping in more money than it ever has before to the Ukraine. There is a lot to get to, but remember, the Ukraine is known for money laundering. That's not me just saying that. Glenn Beck did an investigation into the money laundering way back when they were trying to impeach Donald Trump. And remember what that was all for. Donald Trump called a phone call to the Ukraine trying to figure out the quid pro quo, the illegal activity of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. And the Democrats flipped out and said, how dare you even dare look into our criminal activity? We're going to impeach you for that, for even making a phone call about it. Because it wasn't just about Hunter Biden. That was scratching the surface. Glenn Beck uncovered this, but of course the media blacked it all out. What we found out is that Ukraine has been a massive money laundering thing for your corrupt politicians. Remember, your politicians are always millionaires with salaries that they shouldn't have the money that they have. They'll say they made some great investments, but the truth is their family gets rich through payouts, and some of it is technically legal. But it really isn't, because a lot of it is blackmail. So remember when Joe Biden went over there and did the quid pro quo? Remember that? Well, he was really doing that because of the bigger thing he was trying to cover up. Remember, he was trying to get a prosecutor fired. He said it was a corrupt prosecutor. We have to get him removed. You're not getting the $1 billion until the prosecutor is fired. You want to know why? That prosecutor was coming across money that had been laundered over from the United States to the Ukraine. Barack Obama's administration gave $7 billion to Private Bank. Glenn Beck uncovered all this, and I still remember it because it was so amazing. Private Bank is owned by the exact same oligarch that was employing, guess who? Hunter Biden. Okay? This $7 billion disappeared, but nobody cared. There was no investigation. There still has never been an investigation. So how come our government didn't care that $7 billion disappeared? And why would they be surprised when they gave it to an oligarch who is known for money laundering? Okay? He's known for it from criminal organizations and other people who are globalists in Europe and around the world. They money launder through the Ukraine. So you put $7 billion in that guy's hands and put it through his bank. The only reason why you're really doing that is most likely for money laundering. The fact that our government never looked for it, doesn't care that it disappeared, is one indication. But you would think, fool me once. Okay, if our government just got fooled, they would never do business again with Private Bank. But oh, lo and behold, billions more. I don't remember the exact amount. I think it was almost $7 billion again, the exact same amount. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But they did it a second time, and I think it was $7 billion again. And that disappeared. This is what they didn't want Trump to uncover. So when Joe Biden was telling that prosecutor has to be fired, that prosecutor was investigating, and he was coming across, wait a minute, we were supposed to get all this funding from the Obama administration. There was $7 billion that disappeared. And he was looking into that corruption. And that's why Biden went over there and said, fire him. He's not good. And they put in a new prosecutor, Biden said that, who was cool with the situation. So the Hunter Biden situation, they didn't freak out and impeach Trump because Biden and Hunter Biden were scamming and getting payouts, which was illegal. But they were worried that all of them would be caught. Do you understand the impeachment now? That's what it had to do with. Trump at the time never had figured that out. I didn't even figure it out at the time until Glenn Beck did it. And even Glenn Beck got it a little bit wrong. Glenn Beck was kind. If you watch his 2-hour special from way back when he does this investigation, it has all the documents proving that this happened. He thinks that we were funding possibly a secret little war campaign. But I was like, no, you're dealing with people who have trillions of dollars passed through their hands, who worship at the altar of money. It was all for them. These people love money more than anything. They don't go to Washington to serve you. They go to Washington to get rich and so that their family can get rich. And a lot of it they do legally, like through corporations. When they have a corporation appoint them to a board, technically that's not illegal. But what they do is they do a favor for a corporation, and then the corporation then appoints their family members, or a lot of times them when they leave office, then they get appointed to a board. That's what makes it legal because they're not in office anymore. But the corporations always follow through so that they can show the other politicians who are up and coming, see, we followed through. So-and-so's on the board. So if you do what we like, then you can get a job sitting on the board doing absolutely nothing and getting ridiculous salaries to do absolutely nothing. And that's how the game is played. And Trump was super rich and didn't have to play those type of games, and they hated him for it. And he doesn't go to Washington to get rich, but actually goes there for the American people, and they needed to stop him. Let alone he could uncover a lot of their schemes and expose those schemes, like what they were doing in the Ukraine, which did get exposed, but the mainstream media has hidden it from you. The money laundering schemes that our own corrupt government was doing to get themselves rich, that gets exposed. And then you get angry and never vote for them, these globalists, ever again. That's what they were afraid of. Let me get to some cuts, though. Steve Bannon's not happy about the money. And he has a guest on, and they're talking about this scam and this printing of money and $40 billion, which was going to be 33, going over to the Ukraine. Take a listen.
Autocracy versus democracy, $40 billion, sir. We don't unpaid for it when they just passed another budget. Got to be done. Emergency for 5 months. They need $8 billion a month. It was 33 billion going to thing. The oligarchs aren't putting in 1 penny. The Europeans aren't putting in 1 penny. Salvini and these guys today. Salvini says, hey, the Northern League, we're going to cut off. Italy's not going to give any money to Ukraine. In Paris, it's now on the back pages of the newspaper. Macron don't want to talk about it. No more money. The Germans won't stop buying natural gas cheap. No, but they want you $40 billion. If we let this go down, they shouldn't respect us. They don't respect you, and they shouldn't respect us. They should not respect us. If they get this done, and whoever McCarthy goes along this, McConnell goes along this, they got to be stopped. They're telling us right now they're not going to do the right thing in November when we deliver the massive landslide. They're going to go back to playing the same games they played before. The country's in a crisis. Ukraine is Ukraine's problem and Europe's problem. I want all the guys in Europe to go help them out. Go jump in there and help them out. Jake Bequette, tell me what's going on, sir, down in Arkansas.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, the people of Arkansas could sure use $40 billion, to be better spent here at home rather than in a war-torn, part of Eastern Europe, the Bloodlands. And it's worth noting, as you've noted for months and years, Joe Biden and the D.C. Uniparty, they wouldn't appropriate $4 billion for a border wall because that was too expensive. But I guess $40 billion in foreign aid is just the right amount. It's absolutely absurd. It's insulting to the people of Arkansas, my home state. It's insulting to the people of this country, America First patriots all over this country who are suffering under these policies of Joe Biden and the Democrats and the D.C. Uniparty. And, you've made it so clear that this, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, this is a massive money laundering operation for the D.C. Uniparty. That's all it is. It's a churn and burn. You've got all these major defense contractors, all these NGOs, They go rape and pillage in these war-torn countries in the Middle East and Eastern Europe to see no results, because that's exactly the point.
Yeah, that is the point, that it's really just about money laundering. And war, they can money launder even more. So since Russia went in there, the globalists are not happy. You've got to understand. There's no good guys in the Ukraine conflict. Zelensky is corrupt, super corrupt, and he's more like a dictator. He shut down free media in his country. He is not a beacon of democracy. He is a super corrupt guy. And then you have the globalists who were working with the Ukraine to money launder, and our own politicians were money laundering. We know this. No one can deny that. We know for sure the guy that is in office who overthrew an election, Joe Biden, his own family caught red-handed getting money out of the Ukraine for his own personal family and himself. There's no doubt. But understand, they're not the only ones. That's why they had to impeach Donald Trump, as I've explained. And anyone can look up the things that I said. You can find out about Private Bank and the $7 billion that disappeared, especially if you go and look Glenn Beck's awesome research on it all. Anyways, so this Ukraine, I've explained to you why the corrupt globalists, not just American globalists, but globalists around the world, want your sons and daughters to die for their money laundering country. Now, understand how this all works. Why do they hate Putin? Putin pretends to be a globalist, but really is a dictator. Does anyone disagree with that? No, it's pretty obvious. Putin is a dictator that they can't control. He'll talk with them. He'll act like the globalists and do all the things that they do and go to their meetings and stuff, but he's not controllable. So they want to remove him. They also want to rile him up in case they need him to attack America for their controlled plan. If that fails, of the takedown of America economically, if that fails, they need him to, and I think they're even thinking they don't care. That could happen right now for all they care. They're trying to provoke him. They're hoping that can happen. And then that could be his destruction as well, is what they're thinking. Understand this. But the globalists don't trust Putin because they think he wants to be a world dictator, is what they're thinking. But he wouldn't listen to them. They're not going to tell him what to do, and they know that. The Obama administration, a lot of people don't know, set all of this up, the removing of the dictators for the globalists to take over the world, mostly in the Middle East when he was president. A lot of people don't know what Obama was doing. Remember, Obama tried to act like, oh, I'm anti-war, and I pull out, and then he did more war than anybody else, but then acted like he wasn't doing any of it by funding rebels. He did it in Libya. Gaddafi. Obama had him taken out by arming terrorists that we were supposed to be supposedly fighting in the war against terror. Obama took over and armed the terrorists to remove Gaddafi. He armed terrorist groups, the Muslim Brotherhood, in Egypt. Why? Egypt was controlled by a dictator, and he got the Muslim Brotherhood to take power. But then something Obama didn't count on is the Egyptian military then later overthrew who Obama put in place. So Egypt's in turmoil and will stay in turmoil for quite a while. But Obama did that. Then Obama turned his sights on Assad in Syria. Why? Because Assad's a dictator and he won't follow the globalists, the one world government. So he was removing all the dictators in the Middle East. Do you see that now? And he was arming and created terrorist cells called ISIS. Why was ISIS in Syria? That's where they came out of. That's when they came into Iraq. Where'd they come from? Syria. Where'd they get all these weapons? Why were they not destroyed right away? Clearly, Trump showed we could have destroyed them anytime we wanted to. Obama made sure and handcuffed our military not to destroy them, and in fact, armed ISIS in the hopes that ISIS could overthrow Assad, and it could not look like Obama did it. Obama is a globalist who helped set all this up. Hillary was supposed to be the trigger man that pulls it all, but I won't go deep into that. Anyways, so this is why they hate Putin. He's a dictator. They don't like dictators that they don't think will follow them. So their plot is to destroy Putin, have him either overthrown or have him get in a nuclear war with America, and they'll take two people out that they want, the two countries out One, because the dictator won't follow him, who's not a good man, but he won't follow them. Two, because the American people won't follow globalism. You could take them both out at the same time. This is why they're trying to escalate a war between Russia and America. Get it? This is big boy stuff, but it's all the truth. Now I'm going to give you something that people will say is a conspiracy theory, but it is not a conspiracy theory, and I will prove it in a second. I want to give you what Ben Swann had to say, because this is the second part of what I'm talking about. Besides the politicians, it's going to evil people. Nazis. Yeah, there are Nazis in the Ukraine. A lot of people don't believe this is true, but I'll prove it after you hear what Ben Swann had to say about this billions of dollars going to the Ukraine.
The Biden administration, as we've been telling you, is requesting some $33 to $40 billion to send military equipment into Ukraine at a moment when Americans can't find baby formula on the shelves of grocery stores. We're sending $40 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine. But it's not just generically going to Ukraine or the Ukrainian military. The specifics of this are very important because the main group that's receiving these kinds of weapons and is being trained by the U.S. are Nazi battalions operating inside of Ukraine as they have been for decades. The request includes more than $20 billion for military equipment like artillery and armored vehicles. So how long has this been going on? Well, the truth is the United States has actually been training Nazi battalions in Ukraine for about 8 years now, long before this latest war between Russia and Ukraine. Long before that took place, the U.S. has been training and arming Nazi battalions, again, since 2015. According to a recent Yahoo News report, since 2015, the CIA has been secretly training forces in Ukraine to serve as, quote, insurgent leaders, in the words of one former intelligence official, in case Russia ends up invading the country. Current officials are claiming that training is purely for intelligence collection, but the former officials Yahoo spoke with said that the program involved training in firearms, cover and move, and camouflage, among other things. And the United States has also been openly training Ukrainian military, including members of the Azov Battalion, which is an openly Nazi battalion inside of the Ukrainian military. No one even denies that these guys are Nazis. They proclaim it loudly. They are not ashamed to be Nazis, and yet the United States government and military has been covertly training them. Members like Sergeant Ivan Kharkiv, who reflected fondly on his, quote, battalion's experience with U.S. trainers and U.S. volunteers quite fondly, even mentioning U.S. volunteer engineers and medics that are still currently assisting them. Quote, our vetting screens for human rights violations, not for ideology. A U.S. embassy representative in Ukraine told the Daily Beast. The battalions that are in question have been integrated as part of Ukraine's National Guard. So the idea is that they would be eligible for training. Again, the standard is about human rights violations, but not about ideology. Now, this might be a whole separate episode, but the truth is that's an enormous problem. When the United States military goes into countries and begins training groups and providing weapons to them, not worried about what their ideology is, it leads to more problems down the road. As the Gray Zone has reported, a photo posted on the Azov Battalion's website in November of 2017 shows a U.S. military officer meeting with an officer from the neo-Nazi battalion. A year before the exchange, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev helped coordinate the transfer of rocket-propelled grenade launchers to the Ukrainian military in 2016, a portion of which were immediately sent to the Azov Battalion. Again, you're not screening for ideology, and so we're providing immensely powered weapons to groups that are openly Nazi groups that have an ideology and also have a declaration that their goal is to kill off anyone who is not part of their white superior race in Ukraine.
Yes, and there's more, but folks, understand that some of you are going to say that's a conspiracy theory. No, it's not, because Zelensky went on Fox News and admitted this is true. But people don't put these pieces all together. So let me give you when Bret Baier interviewed Zelensky admitting this. Now, why did Bret Baier even ask him about this? Because the Nazis were taking Russian POWs. This is people in the Ukrainian army and shooting them in the crotch. There are videos all over the place of them. It's so gruesome. I'm not going to give it to you, but you can look it up easily. And I know Alex Jones has played those videos, so you can go to InfoWars and see those videos as well. They're brutal. They're awful. And it's evil, and that's the Ukraine committing war atrocities on Russia, but I'm sure Russia committed war atrocities on them. But here's Zelensky with Bret Baier on Fox News admitting that everything that you just heard from Ben Swann is 100% true.
I want to have you clear something up for us. And this is these reports about the Azov Battalion that is said to be Nazi-affiliated organization operating as a militia in your country, said to be committing their own atrocities. What should Americans know about that unit, about those reports?
So Azov was one of those many battalions. They are what they are. They were defending our country. And later, I want to explain to you. Everything from all the components of those volunteer battalions later were incorporated into the military of Ukraine. Those Azov fighters are no longer self-established group. They are a component of the Ukrainian military. Back in 2014, there were situations when our volunteers were encircled, and some of them did violate laws of Ukraine. And they actually were taken to court and got prison sentences. So law is above all.
But what I saw is that those prison sentences were overturned. And remember, this is before the war with the Russians, the invasion, before because they kind of were already at war with Russia. So that was already happening technically. Anyways, those convictions were overturned from what I know, from what I've seen, what I've read. Anyways, so they haven't been punished, as far as I know, for committing war crimes and shooting Russian POWs in the crotch and making them suffer until they die, and kicking them and beating them and laughing. I haven't heard any punishment for those Nazis. And that was the Nazis, but they were just wearing normal Ukrainian military because they're part of the Ukrainian military. This is important because your money will go to them. Even though it's a money laundering scheme, money launderers always have the money go to real things. The mafia always has real things the money goes to hide the money that they're actually taking. So yes, some money will go through, but even the money that goes through is going to go to people like that. So you can't even feel good about, well, I know the politicians, I know that this was a money laundering scheme, and I know there's corrupt people that will take money, and I know there's defense contractors that will get huge payouts, and then, of course, relatives that are related to the people in our own government work for those contractors and will get payouts or will be part of the boards. And I know all that, but at least some of it will go to defend Russia, but you're not giving it to good people. There are no good guys. The Ukraine is bad. Russia is bad. The globalists are bad. And their goal, the globalist goal, is to get rid of Putin because they can't trust him and get rid of America. That's what you're facing. And it's not just innocent to print $40 billion when we have massive inflation. You're going to pay the cost, not directly. They're not going to raise your taxes. You're just going to pay it in inflation. Here's a great clip from War Room Pandemic.
The American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. I'm sick of this stuff. Simply not true. I'm sick of this stuff. American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money.
Until the American people have the political will to stop it, that's going to continue.
Now, give us the will. Tell us how we get that.
There's only one way you can stop inflation, and that's by having the government create less money and spend less money.
We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money.
What happened to all that noise?
I'm out of time. You get the point. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. I told you that because I love you guys. You better understand it's true, especially in the times in which we live. Go out and win the day. See ya! Well, if you've gotten this far, you must really love our content, but have you checked out thenewamerican.com fully? You need to go check it out. You can subscribe to the twice monthly magazine. It's a physical magazine that can arrive to your home, so that's awesome. But you can also daily at the website get new stuff every single day when you go to thenewamerican.com. So if you haven't done that, go there, do it, and subscribe.